Franco Baresi has passed away at the age of 66. For AC Milan, this is not simply the loss of a former player, it is the loss of a captain, a symbol, and a part of the club's identity. The number 6 shirt has been empty for many years. Now it feels heavier than ever. Baresi spent 20 seasons wearing red and black. He stayed through victories, defeats, scandals, and relegations. He helped transform a broken club into the strongest team in the world. But his journey did not begin with glory. It began with rejection. Franco Baresi was born in 1960 in Travagliato, a small town near Brescia in northern Italy. He grew up in a farming family and spent his early years playing football wherever he could. Life forced him to grow up quickly. Franco lost his mother when he was 13. His father died only a few years later. Football gave him somewhere to escape. It also gave him a future to chase. Franco played alongside his older brother, Giuseppe. They both dreamed of becoming professionals, and both went for a trial at Inter Milan. Giuseppe was accepted. Franco was rejected. He was considered too small and too weak. He did not look like the kind of defender Italian clubs wanted at the time. His brother entered Inter's academy. Franco went home. That could have ended the story before it had truly started. Instead, AC Milan gave him another opportunity. They saw what others had missed. Baresi was not physically powerful, but his mind moved faster than the game. He understood where the ball was going. He could see danger before it developed and step forward at exactly the right moment. At 14, he joined Milan's youth system. He would never represent another club. In April 1978, Baresi made his first team debut. He was only 17, quiet and surrounded by experienced professionals. Yet it did not take long for him to look as if he belonged. 1 year later, he became a regular starter. Milan were chasing their 10th Italian championship. Winning it would allow the club to place a golden star above its badge. The team still had Gianni Rivera, the great hero of an earlier generation. Rivera was approaching the end of his career. Baresi was just beginning his. Milan won the title. At 18 years old, Franco Baresi was already a champion of Italy. It seemed like the perfect beginning. A young player enters the team, wins the league, and prepares for a career filled with trophies. Then, everything fell apart. In 1980, Milan were punished because of their involvement in a match-fixing scandal. The club was sent down to Serie B. Baresi had done nothing wrong. He was young, talented, and already respected across Italy. He could have found another club and remained in the top division. But he stayed. Milan returned to Serie A the first attempt. The nightmare appeared to be over, but only for a moment. In 1982, the club was relegated again. This time there was no scandal to blame. Milan simply had not been good enough. Once again, Baresi could have left. Once again, he stayed. He followed one of the biggest names in world football into small stadiums and difficult matches in the second division. There were no great European nights, no global attention, no guarantee that Milan would quickly recover. At only 22, Baresi was made captain. It was a huge responsibility for such a young player. But Milan needed more than talent. The club needed someone who would remain calm when everything around him was unstable. Baresi became that person. This is where his relationship with Milan was truly formed. Not during a trophy celebration, but during the worst period in the club's history. Anyone can stay when the team is winning. Baresi stayed after the fall. Milan returned to Serie A, but the difficult years continued. Juventus, Roma, and Inter were fighting for the biggest trophies. Milan were trying to find themselves again. Through all of it, Baresi led the defense. He was not tall for a centre-back. He did not look frightening. He rarely needed to throw his body into wild challenges. He defended with intelligence. A striker would think he was free, and then Baresi would appear in front of him. One quick movement, one clean interception, and the danger was gone. Then he would carry the ball forward and begin Milan's next attack. He played as if he had already seen the move before everyone else. Still, one brilliant defender could not rebuild an entire football club. Baresi had to wait. The change finally arrived in 1986. when Silvio Berlusconi bought Milan. New money entered the club. Great players began to arrive. Arrigo Sacchi became the coach. Sacchi wanted to change the way Milan played. His defenders would not remain close to their own goal. They would move forward together, press the opposition, and make the pitch feel smaller. It was brave and dangerous. If one defender moved at the wrong time, the entire system could collapse. Sacchi needed someone who could control it. He needed Franco Baresi. Around the captain, one of football's greatest defensive lines began to form. Mauro Tassotti played on the right. Young Paolo Maldini played on the left. Alessandro Costacurta stood beside Baresi in the center. They did not defend as four separate players. They moved like one body. Baresi was their leader. He watched the ball, the opponents and his teammates at the same time. He constantly moved, pointed and shouted instructions. Then, at the perfect moment, the whole line stepped forward. The striker continued running. The whistle sounded. Offside. Again and again, Milan trapped their opponents this way. Ahead of the defense were Carlo Ancelotti and Roberto Donadoni. Then came three Dutch stars, Ruud Gullit, Frank Rijkaard, and Marco van Basten. Milan suddenly had everything: power, speed, beauty, and discipline. But Baresi remained the foundation. In 1988, Milan fought Diego Maradona's Napoli for the Italian title. Napoli were the defending champions, and Maradona was the most feared player in the country. Late in the season, Milan traveled to Naples for a match that could decide the championship. They won 3-2. After 9 long years, Milan were champions of Italy again. The club had finally returned. 1 year later, Milan faced Real Madrid in the European Cup semi-final. The first match in Spain ended 1-1. At San Siro, Milan destroyed them. 5 goals, 5 different scorers. Real Madrid had no answer. In the final, Milan defeated Steaua Bucharest 4-0. The stadium in Barcelona was filled with red and black. Baresi lifted the European Cup. The boy who had followed Milan into Serie B was now the captain of the best team in Europe. The following year, Milan won the competition again, beating Benfica in the final. Back-to-back European Cups. Sacchi's team became known as the Immortals. Gullit, Rijkaard and Van Basten provided many of the famous attacking moments. But behind them stood Baresi, the man who gave the entire team balance and courage. His greatness was not always found in dramatic tackles. It was in the danger that never arrived, because he had already stopped it. His international career developed more slowly. Baresi was part of Italy's squad when they won the 1982 World Cup, but he did not play during the tournament. Italy already had trusted defensive leaders, and Baresi had to wait for his opportunity. By 1990, there was no question about his place. The World Cup was being held in Italy. The entire country expected the national team to win. With Baresi leading the defense, Italy won all 3 group matches without allowing a single goal. They then defeated Uruguay and the Republic of Ireland. 5 matches, 5 victories, no goals conceded. In the semi-final, Italy faced Argentina in Naples. The match finished 1-1 and went to penalties. Argentina won the shootout. Italy's dream ended without Baresi and his defense losing a single match in normal time. They had been nearly perfect. Football did not care. Back at Milan, another great period was beginning. Fabio Capello replaced Sacchi in 1991. The style changed, but the captain did not. Milan became calmer, stronger, and almost impossible to defeat. They completed the entire 1991-92 league season without losing. Their unbeaten run eventually reached 58 Serie A matches. They won 3 consecutive Italian championships between 1992 and 1994. In 1993, Milan reached the Champions League final but lost to Marseille. 1 year later, they returned to the final and faced Barcelona. Johan Cruyff's team arrived as favourites. They had Romario, Hristo Stoichkov, and a reputation for beautiful attacking football. Milan had a major problem. Baresi was suspended, Costacurta was suspended too. The captain had to watch from the stands as his teammates entered the biggest match of the season without him. Milan won 4-0. It remains one of the greatest performances in the history of a European final. Baresi was not on the pitch, but his influence was everywhere. The defense he had commanded for years knew exactly what to do. After the victory, he came down to celebrate with his teammates. For the third time, Franco Baresi lifted the European Cup. Only weeks later, he traveled to the United States as Italy's captain for the 1994 World Cup. During the second group match against Norway, Baresi injured his knee. The news was devastating. He needed an operation. His World Cup appeared to be over. Baresi remained with the squad and began working immediately. While Italy fought to survive, he spent every day trying to recover. Italy escaped the group stage. They survived a dramatic match against Nigeria. They defeated Spain and then Bulgaria. Suddenly, they were in the World Cup final, and Baresi was running again. He had barely trained. He was not completely fit. The final would be played in terrible afternoon heat against Brazil. None of it stopped him. Only 22 days after his operation, Baresi walked onto the field at the Rose Bowl. He was 34. In front of him were Romario and Bebeto, two of the most dangerous forwards on the planet. For 120 minutes, Baresi controlled them. Again and again, Brazil moved toward Italy's goal. Again and again, the captain was there. A damaged knee had carried him through one of the greatest defensive performances of his career. The match ended 0-0. For the first time, a World Cup final would be decided by penalties. Baresi stepped forward to take Italy's first kick. He placed the ball down, moved back, and began his run. The shot flew over the crossbar. Brazil eventually won the shootout. At the end, Baresi fell to his knees and cried. It became one of the most painful images of his career, but that miss should never erase what happened before it. Just 3 weeks after surgery, he played every minute of a World Cup final and stopped one of the world's best attacks. He gave Italy everything he had. Sometimes, everything is still not enough. That final became Baresi's last appearance for his country. He finished with 81 caps and a World Cup winner's medal from 1982. His journey with Milan continued. The years were beginning to show. His body was slowing down, and a younger generation was preparing to take control. One of those players was Paolo Maldini. Maldini had entered Milan's team as a teenager and grown up beside Baresi. Now he was ready to carry the club forward. In 1996, Milan won another league championship. It was the 6th Scudetto of Baresi's career. 1 year later, at the age of 37, he retired. He had played 719 official matches for AC Milan, 20 seasons, 1 badge, 1 shirt. During his career, he won 6 Italian championships and 3 European Cups. He lifted international trophies and captained some of the greatest teams football has ever seen. But numbers cannot fully explain what Baresi meant. After his retirement, Milan removed the number 6 shirt from the team. No future player would wear it. The number belonged to him. Baresi remained close to the club after his playing days. He worked with young players, represented Milan around the world, and eventually became honorary vice president. He had arrived as a rejected 14-year-old boy. He remained for more than half a century. And now, Franco Baresi is gone. There will be sadness in Milan. There will be old matches shown again, photographs held in the air, and stories passed from one generation to another. People will remember the trophies. They will remember the raised arm, the perfect interceptions, and the captain lifting the European Cup. They will remember Pasadena, the injured knee, and the tears after the penalty. But above everything, they will remember that he stayed. He stayed when Milan was sent down. He stayed when the club was weak. He stayed long enough to lead them back to the top of Italy, Europe, and the world. Franco Baresi showed that strength was not about height. Leadership was not about fame. Loyalty was not something to speak about only when life was easy. He was rejected because people thought he was too small. He became one of the greatest defenders football has ever known. For Milan supporters, he was more than that. He was their captain, he was their number 6, and he always will be. Rest in peace, Franco Baresi, Il Capitano, forever 6.